All right, we're trying to get Ace back. Hold on. All right, I see him calling back now. I thought
we had him.
We had him, he disappeared. Probably
classic.
wasn't hearing anything on hold and was... As soon as he's on the line, I'm grabbing him so we don't lose him again. Standing by. Here we go. We're going to talk to Ace Frehley right now. You know him as a founding member and the original lead guitarist, of course, of Kiss. He's working on a new record, and we'll see what he's got cooking and talk to Ace right now. Joins us live on Trunk Nation. How are you, Ace?
Hello, Eddie Trunk, and all my fans and listeners.
How's it going, buddy? How's the record coming?
You know, I got back off the road. You know, I did a 2-week tour of California, which was 8 sold-out shows, and I came back, took a week off just to rest and recuperate, and then I started getting in the studio, and within 6 days I had recorded 5 new songs, which is unprecedented for me. So right now it looks like the album is going to be completed, not mixed, but completed probably in another week.
Wow, that's awesome. And for people that don't know, you moved not too long ago, just a couple years ago now, to New Jersey, and you built a studio. This is the first record you're doing in your new studio in your place, right?
Yeah, it's the best studio I've ever had. I love it.
And you're working with I know we've seen some photos and I've been in touch with them. You've been doing some work with Steve Brown. Who else? Tell me about that and who else you're collaborating with on the record.
I've been working with Steve Brown. I've been working with Pepe Castro from the Blues Magoos back in the 60s. They had the big hit, We Ain't Got Nothing Yet. I grew up with him in the Bronx. He inspired me to become a rock star because I saw him. I remember going to Orchard Beach in the Bronx, and all of a sudden I hear Pepe's song on the radio. I go, Jesus Christ, if he can do that, I can do it. I was better looking than him. He actually taught me how to play bar chords when I was
Is that right?
in a basement of an apartment building. And he had an old Telecaster, and I don't know what I had. I think I had a Hackstrom piece of crap. But he was, we've been friends ever since, and we followed each other's career, and, you know, he's been in my studio half a dozen times, and he also hooked me up with, Jesus Christ, I'm so bad with names. I'm in my studio right now. Let me pull up my email. Tommy, another guy I've been working with is Tommy. Let me get his name right. He works with Mark Lang. Do you know I'm talking? Tommy Deloy.
Denander or something like that?
Yeah. Tommy Deloy.
Yeah, he worked with Hollywood Vampires too, I think.
He wrote 3 songs for me, you know, that I'm probably going to rearrange at least 1 or 2 of them and add vocals. But, you know, me and Steve have been just churning out we've been doing a song a day. It's insanity. I mean, the other day Steve was supposed to come over, and I said, Steve, I got a runny nose. I got a little chill the other day because I went out in a T-shirt to my car to get something, and I got a chill. And, you know, I think I'm coming down with something. When you're working and when you're burning a candle at both ends, you know, your resistance goes down. You know, and I'm no spring chicken. So.
And Ace, just so people know, this is not the next record you're making is not going to be a covers record, right? This is all original material. Although you did send me a song, I won't reveal what it is because I'm sure you want to keep it a surprise. But you did do a cover that people wouldn't expect on this record, right?
Well, you know, if my memory serves me correctly, the last 2 studio records I did both had 1 cover on them and 1 instrumental. I'm still focusing on what I have 2 or 3 songs that can be instrumentals, or I could add vocal lyrics to it. I'm just deciding which one's going to be the best one for an instrumental, because if I don't do an instrumental, my fans are going to be upset, because every one of my studio albums have had an instrumental track on it.
Along that end,
It all started with Fractured Mirror in 1978.
Well, I know, and that's what I wanted to ask you about. You wrote a great thing in the recent issue of Guitar World magazine about what Jeff Beck, who of course recently passed away, what he meant to you. And what I read that, and I thought it was great. There was a really nice piece you did there with all these other guitar players, but you had a big section in there about Jeff and how important he was to you. And what I didn't know until I read that interview was that your inspiration for doing instrumentals and doing Fractured Mirror back in 78 was because of how much you love Jeff. It was very much influenced by Jeff Beck.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff was a one-of-a-kind guitar player. There will never be another Jeff Beck, just like there'll never be another Jimi Hendrix, There's only one. After one, they broke the mold.
Yeah, and you had a chance to meet him.
Jeff Beck was the guitar player.
Yep.
I used to go to his show, and the audience was filled with guitar players, and they were just in awe of how and what he did with his guitar and the sounds he got. He even used a pick. He played with his fingers. I mean, he baffled me. I mean, just amazing. I mean, the last time I actually met him was at the Iridium when he performed there, and I bumped into Meatloaf and Paul Schaefer, and I don't know who the hell else, but they were all there. And my old publicist was there, Carol Kay, and he just blew the doors off the place.
Yeah,
and I watched him play, but he almost reminds me in ways of me because he plays very unorthodox.
Right.
And I play very unorthodox because I never took guitar lessons. So, I think there's a similarity there between me and Jeff, and that's what drew me maybe to his style. Because I don't know what the hell he's playing, and I can't even follow what he's doing. He does it so fast.
Well, the other huge similarity between you and Jeff Beck is the fact that you are both guitar players that immediately when you hear a solo, people know who it is. You immediately know that's Jeff Beck. It's so identifiable. You immediately know that's Ace Frehley. It's so identifiable. To me, that's a trait among some of my favorite guitar players. When you hear Brian May take a guitar solo, immediately you know that's Brian May. So that's a really unique thing.
Yeah, well, I got a gift from God, and thank God I didn't, some people get gifts and talents and they don't develop them. And I think that's a sin.
Yeah. Well, listen, this record...
I started playing guitar when I was 13, and, what am I now? I'm going to be 72 next month. And the album will be, thank God, I'm going to have the album mixed before my birthday, which is my first concert when I go back out on the road. So I guess they'll have a birthday cake for me on stage. I don't know. Well,
it beats the alternative of not having birthdays, that's for sure. So we'll look forward to the record, and of course, when you get music out, we'll do more on the record itself. But with the time we have today, let's get to the thing that every Kiss fan in the world wants to know, and that is that we all know that Kiss have announced what they're saying are their final 2 shows at Madison Square Garden, December 1st and 2nd. They have not announced any special guests, but obviously the fans are rabid to know if you and or Peter, and even many asking about Bruce, if there will be some involvement. I know you can't speak for the other guys, but what can you tell us? What do you know? And have you had any official formal offer from Kiss to be involved in these shows?
Absolutely not. But I have read interviews where Gene and Paul are inferring and actually have invited me. So I think they've, in a way, deceived the fans because that makes the fans think that me and Bruce and Peter are going to show up. And from what I understand, both concerts are sold out. And I think the fans are anticipating, me being on stage. I haven't been contacted formally, and if they want me to get up on stage for the last final concerts, they better have deep pockets.
So you'd be open to doing it if there was a deal presented and there was an offer made, it sounds like.
Yeah. A large offer.
One of the things that Doc has said in interviews about why it would be challenging to bring back you or Peter is because of the makeup factor. What do you think about that?
I mean, talking about. Yeah, Doc just goes on and on. One day he says one thing, and one day he says another thing. He's down in Florida, and I don't even know if he consults Paul and Gene about the things he's saying. But sometimes he contradicts previous interviews that he's done in the past. But, I love Doc. Me and Doc have a great relationship, and I have no problem with Doc McGee. At times I've had problems with Paul and Gene over the past, and unfortunately, from what I understand, I haven't heard the interview myself, but I've been told that Paul went on Howard Stern, and when Howard Stern addressed Paul about why didn't he get up on stage with me and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he made a comment saying, well, if we would have got on stage with Peter and Ace, you could have called the band Piss.
That is true. That was said in the recent interview, and about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was said about
somebody who knows.
It was said about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when Howard asked why they didn't play with you at the Hall of Fame. Paul said because they only wanted to play with the original band. And I'm paraphrasing, but he absolutely said it because I thought it was completely unnecessary to say this. But he said if we would have played with Ace and Peter, they would have had to call the band Piss instead of Kiss because that's what we would have sounded like.
Well, those guys have been bad-mouthing me since I quit the very first time in 1981, 1982. Calling me out, calling me a drug addict, calling me an alcoholic, saying I'm unemployable, I'm undependable, blah, blah, blah. And then when we did the Unplugged thing for MTV, all of a sudden, I'm offered millions of dollars to come back to the band, and what happened? Now I'm not a drug addict, and I'm dependable, and you're willing to take a shot at hiring me again? In fact, they offered me more money than they offered Peter. So
that was
the reunion tour was one of the most successful tours Kiss ever did. It grossed over $250 million the first year. It was the largest grossing tour of that year by any band in the United States and Europe. And then, I said, well, I got paid, and I said, okay, well, I'll see you guys. I'm going back to my solo. And then all of a sudden they said, no, we're thinking about doing a farewell tour. I said, okay, what kind of money are we talking about? And it was acceptable. And I said, why not make a few more $1 million? And I decided to do the farewell tour, which ended in Australia. And that was the night I punched out Tommy Thayer. But he was our tour manager, and he was breaking my balls about my girlfriend being in the dressing room. He goes, Ace, we have rules, and your girlfriend isn't allowed to be in the dressing room. I go, Tommy, everybody in the band has left, and it's the end of the tour. I think my girlfriend can hang out with me while I, clean up get cleaned up. And he said, no, she's got to leave. I said, really? Guess what? Boom. And Doc got really mad at me that night. Me and Doc almost had a fist fight. And I was ready to duke it out with Doc. And Paul was just standing there looking at me. like in amazement. See, he doesn't realize I grew up in the streets, and was in gangs, been in jail, been shot, been stabbed, had guns put to my head, been knocked out, been thrown in jail. So, I mean, I don't care how anybody who I'll go up against a guy twice my size. I don't care. It's just in my blood. But
let me ask you. Let me go back to the question here, though. You brought up the fact that those guys take these shots at you, and sometimes at Peter as well. They certainly did on Howard, saying that. We all know that they didn't want to play. I mean, they are always the ones that say everything's for the fans. I mean, when in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, in the history of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Cheap Trick played with Bunny Carlos. They were in a lawsuit with him at the time. They still played with them for the fans. Heart brought their original band out. At least did a couple songs for the fans. We know it's obviously a fact. Well, Cheap Trick. What I'm saying is we've seen bands go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, I don't know, but my point is that we've seen bands who have these divisions, but when they go in the Hall of Fame, they play a couple songs for the fans with the lineup that's going in the Hall of Fame. We know that Gene and Paul refused to do that, which is why there was no performance there at all. And them saying that now about you guys, I mean, it's a tough thing to say when you consider the fact that you tour all the time. Unlike them, you make records every year or two. So to paint you as a guy who is unreliable or on drugs or unfunctional doesn't fly over the last 15 years because you've made way more records than they have, and you play 3, 4, 5 shows a week sometimes still. You just did shows opening for Alice Cooper. So, I'm sure people listening.
I had a really successful tour with Alice Cooper. I've been doing festivals. I mean, I did 4 shows in a row. And when I went to California, I was doing 3 shows in a row, singing 10 songs a night. Everybody went crazy.
That's my point, Ace. The narrative that you can't do it, that you wouldn't be able to do 3, 4 songs with them, doesn't work. Makes no sense.
No, it's just, you know what it is? It's Paul's frustration and insecurity that he has to use backing tapes, and we're only 6 months apart, and I can still get up there and belt it out and hit the keys that he can't. And it's very unfortunate. And I'm very sad that the fact that he's using backing tracks, it's cheapening the brand, which affects my bottom line because I still get paid from KISS on merchandising and whatever else they do. And I'm pissed off about it. But what I'm more pissed off about is what he said. Because I think what he said was hitting below the belt. Because at the time he said that, I was already 8 years sober. And he's making a statement and trying to project to the fans listening to the Howard Stern show that I was unreliable at the time. And it's a complete falsehood, and it's a lie. And I think he's just pissed off that, I left the group and I'm still successful, and they don't always sell out shows. A lot of times they paper the house. You know that, I know that.
Well, I think what it's about, again, with the thing with what he said on Howard about calling you guys pissed, the band would be pissed. I think we all know it's always about the sell at that time. When you and Peter came back, the vibe was, this is the original Magic. Everything else was a substitute. Now it's about pushing the version of the band now. And that's what it's about. And for whatever reason, feeling like he has to diminish you guys. I mean, the Hall of Fame thing has been covered a million times. All he had to say was the truth. We didn't want to play with Ace and Peter, so nobody played. But to have to take that hit, you're right. I don't know why the need for that. The only thing I can see is it's just constantly about the reinforcement of what they're doing now. And that's my take on it.
Let me tell you something, my brother, and the fans. Nobody knows this, but when I was living in San Diego with my psycho girlfriend, I got a phone call from Paul, Doc, and Gene. We did a conference call, and they were asking me to play with them on stage. They wanted me to play. They wanted to do it. And I said, I'm not getting up on stage with Tommy if he's wearing my makeup. You expect me to wear makeup? There'll be 2 spacemen. Are you crazy? I'll do it if it's just us 4, the original founding members who created something very special. And for the last 15 years, they've had, other people playing, what Peter did, and Tommy's copying every solo I wrote and trying to copy my moves and trying to be cool on stage, but unsuccessfully, unfortunately. But, with all the bombs and the smoke and mirrors, they're getting away with it. So, personally, I don't give a shit as long as I'm getting paid by them. But as far as what he said on Howard Stern, I'm going to make a statement to Paul Stanley right now. And Paul, if you're not listening, I'm sure one of your associates in the KISS group are, and I'm telling you that I want a formal apology for what you said, and a retraction and an apology within 7 days. And if I don't get that within 7 days, I'm coming back on Ed Trunk's show, your show, Ed, if you'll have me, and I'm going to tell some dirt that nobody knows about Paul and Gene, that I've always kept to myself, because I'm the kind of guy who doesn't, talk about that. I like to talk about the positive stuff. You've read my book. You've read Paul's book. You've read Peter's book. A lot of times those guys are just throwing people under the bus. I mean, in Paul's book, he even threw Gene under the bus. But what I tried to do is have a fun, entertaining book, with interesting stories, and this is the way I am. I'm not the kind of guy who kisses and tells. And when it comes to negativity, and we've all done things that we regret over the years, it's there. I have a 120-page manuscript that I wrote after I finished my book, and my attorney has it in the safety deposit box. God forbid anything happens to me, my attorney is instructed to release it to the New York Times, Rolling Stone, API, everybody. So, I mean, they can't intimidate me with, trying to hurt me or say, you better not say anything about me live on the radio, because then they're totally screwed. Their careers will be ruined.
Let me ask you this. Would you, in your, outside of the money and the deal, because we know their line for the last 5 years has been, well, everyone's welcome, but we know you can't just knock on the back door at a concert with your guitar and say, hey, can I come up and play a song? We know that a business has to be dealt with. You would want to rehearse. You'd want to make sure it's done right.
I would never come up and ask. The only way I would come up is if they offered me a large chunk of money, since they owe me millions of dollars. And anyway, according to my attorney, Peter Paterno, who's one of the biggest rock and roll attorneys in the business. He handles some of the biggest. He handles Metallica. He handles. I mean, you name the top names. He's one of the top attorneys. And I remember when I first hired him, they got really scared. And I remember there was a statement they made to somebody that got back to me. They said, or was it Doc that said, nobody hires Peter Paterno unless they, want to sue you. But I didn't want to sue them at the time, because I was actually hoping that maybe they'd invite me to come back, for a third time, and not because I really wanted to play with them, because we created something really special, and I'm the best fit in that band. Always was, always will be. You can think Tommy Thayer can do what I can do. Impossibility.
Well, that's where I was.
What I was.
That's what my question was to you about all of this. Outside of the business and the offer and all of that, is there a side?
I don't dislike Tommy as a person. I think he's a nice guy. He used to be
Right.
my tour manager. He used to get me sandwiches, you know.
But Ace, my question is this. Outside of all the business and all of that, if that got sorted out, is there because, as you said more than one time, the four of you created something so special, so iconic, something that will outlive all of us. Is there a side of you, if these really are the last shows, that you want to be a part of it? Like, would you like to? It sounds like you are more than willing and open to showing up on that last show in December and getting on stage at least for a few songs. Inside of you, you'd like to do it for yourself and the fans.
Doing it if they made me a decent offer financially.
But there's been no formal offer or invite, right? There's been no formal offer or invite at all ever.
There hasn't been one formal call that formally is inviting me to do the show, the 2 nights, and. But the shows are what? How many months away?
Well, it's December. It's, 8-9 months.
Yeah. They're probably just, biding their time, thinking, maybe they're going to wait till 3 months before the concert. And then, I don't need the money. I got plenty of money.
But that's my point for the fans and for yourself and for closure, because you are and were such a huge part of KISS. That's really what my question is for you inside. Is it something you'd like to do because of your history and your involvement in it getting started?
I would be more than happy to get up on stage under the right situation if I was paid the right amount of money for both nights, and I'd be more than happy to do it. For the fans, not because I really want to play with Paul and Gene.
That's my point, because there's fans.
As far as I'm concerned, the musicians I'm playing with now blow them off the stage.
Have you talked to Peter at all about any of this?
No. But I was with Peter about a month ago in Atlantic City when John 5 invited me to his first performance with Motley Crue, and he invited Peter because John 5 is always also good friends with Peter. And I was with Laura, my fiance, and Peter was with Gigi, his wife, and we were hanging out, right by the stage, in front of the stage, and I don't think Gigi ever met Laura, so they met and they were talking and getting along nicely. And me and Peter, we did a remember that thing we did in Nashville last year? And
with Vinnie Vincent.
that was the first time I met Vinnie Vincent, and I was a little apprehensive about meeting Vinnie Vincent because I've heard so many crazy stories about him. And, I've seen pictures of him in a dress. I don't know what, the stuff I've heard, is, I don't like to talk about anybody unless I know it's a credible person. So, but Vinny was very sweet to me. I didn't realize he was that small. But in reality, honestly, he looked like an old woman. Not to say anything detrimental, but look at the photographs.
And not to say anything against old women, because I'm not. We're all getting older.
Laura's 53. I'm going to be 72, and we're 18 years apart, just like my mother and father was. So that's good luck.
Yeah. So just in wrapping up here, you're open to doing it if there's a deal and an actual offer made. You've had no contact from them whatsoever. There's been no offer made whatsoever. And you would like a apology for Paul saying on Howard that the band would have sounded like, quote unquote, piss if they played with you and Peter at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and I want it within 7 days. I'm coming back on your show, if you will allow me to, and talk about some more dirt that the fans don't know about Paul and Gene, because those guys aren't squeaky clean.
Right. And
Yeah,
I mean,
you know
look,
how many
I've said,
lawsuits Gene had against girls have had against Gene? You know?
well,
I mean,
I've said many times, Ace.
They just fired their guy that handles their wigs. And, I mean, I don't give a shit. I'll say it over there. I wear a wig, too. I mean, what 70-year-old rocker doesn't wear a wig? You know? Very few. And,
Hold on for one for me. I'm going to need one soon.
Yeah, well, you're not embarrassed. You know,
I don't give a shit. I'm just talking honestly.
Pays? You know how many businessmen wear toupees? You know how many A-list men actors, leading men wear wigs? Probably more than 50%. You know,
I just got to
see
laugh.
Iron Man, and I look at his hair in the first one, and then the second one, and then in Endgame, his hair looks even thicker. What happened? I don't know. Yeah, I assume he's either wearing extensions or got a hairpiece. It really doesn't matter. You know how many women, wear wigs, leading actresses? It goes along with the territory. You know how many rock stars wear wigs? I mean, come on.
Well, what's your point? What's your point about the wigs? I don't know what the point is.
My point is that Paul and Gene, this past month, fired Dave Matthews, who did their wigs for 30 years. He was always there for them, and they just fired him on the spot, and he's suing them now for severance pay. And, those guys I can't believe how cutthroat they are in the way they do business. I was sitting in a van with Gene during the reunion tour, and I was sitting next to him, and he was on the phone with his attorney, and he said, overheard him saying, his attorney say, Gene, you owe this party $20,000. Gene says, fuck them. It'll cost them $20,000 to get it. He says, don't pay him. Now, I can't do that to people. If I owe somebody $20,000, they're going to get the $20,000. But, some people don't give a shit about other people's feelings or don't want to do the right thing because they feel they're above everybody. That's sad. I would not want to be Gene on the day he has to meet his maker at the pearly gates and explain his actions. But Gene's an atheist, so I don't think he thinks anything's going to happen. But I happen to believe in God, and I happen to believe that, we're going to be held accountable for everything we've done during our lives on this earth. So, he can go along thinking there's no God up there and he's an atheist and can get away with whatever he wants. Sorry, pal. You're going to have a wake-up call.
Well, just for the record, as I've said repeatedly, you come on this show. Peter has come on this show over the years. For the last 20-plus years, Gene or Paul will not come on this show, but my door, for the record, has always been open to them. It's up to them if they decide to ever take the opportunity to do so. But, you've said at the end, Gene was on this show last 20 years ago. So it's been a long time. You. Yeah. Well, I just saw him not too long.
Not a big fan of yours.
I'd say that probably, but I just saw him and I gave him a wave. I wasn't, I just saw him in Vegas at something. I've never had any personal issue at all, but I'm always going to say how I feel as a fan. I think everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'll always be a fan. Everybody knows that, but everybody should also be able to have the ability to speak their mind and give an opinion and not have it, held against you. But I'll tell you this.
I don't mind people giving their opinions as long as they're accurate. But for Paul to make a statement and infer that I can't play guitar anymore and sing is a ridiculous statement. I was sober for 8 years and touring at the time. What is he, crazy? And then I remember I had a meeting with Paul and Gene at Paul's house maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago. I don't know. I pulled up in my Bentley and we're sitting in there, and I was talking about possibly returning to the group. Gene says to me, I wouldn't get on the stage with you for more than 50 minutes. What the fuck does that mean?
I don't know. You do an hour and a half right
but
now
at the
still
time,
when you play
I was
live.
doing an hour and a half shows on tour. And then why did he invite me to go on tour with him in Australia? And why did he invite me to go on tour with him to help promote his those silly safes he bought? What were they called?
Vault. Silly safe.
The silly safes. They should have been called Gene's silly safes. What were they called again?
The Vault.
The Vault Experience. Yeah, he should have pole vaulted. But I actually, look, you know, Gene has said, I'm one of his only true friends. Because me and Gene used to room together. And to be totally honest with you, no matter what I say about Gene, I love Gene. I've always loved Gene. With all his faults and with all my faults, I believe Gene still loves me as a person. You know, but he's a very shrewd businessman. He's a cutthroat businessman. And, you know, I don't know, that's part of his heritage, you know, the way he was brought up, his religion or whatever, even though I don't think he's very religious.
No, but he had a tough upbringing. I mean, that's all been well documented. His mom was a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah,
of course, it's all
used
very.
to live in a kibbutz in Israel.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. It really is. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't know. When he came to this country, he went to yeshiva. It's what's that? Hasidic Jew school, and he used to have the dreadlocks.
Right.
Not the dreadlocks, the curls and the yarmulke and the whole 9 yards. I mean, I wish I had some pictures of those. He's probably had them all destroyed.
No, there's pictures out there of that, but that's an amazing story. I mean, it really is. I mean, that's truly the American dream. What he's accomplished.
I respect everybody's religion. You know, whether you're a Hindu or Arabic religion. What's the Arab religion called?
Muslim?
Buddhist? No, they have that big square building that they all go around.
I don't know.
What's the Arabic religion? The Muslims. Muslim.
That's what I said. Muslim.
Yeah. I'm hard of hearing, brother. But, to make a long story short, I respect all religions, and I personally believe God looks down and evaluates every person, and he sees what's inside their heart. And no matter what religion they're in, if God sees that they're a good person and do good deeds and care about other people and do things that are right and good and true, I think they're going to go to the right place. And I think the other people are going to go to the wrong place, and hang out with the devil. And some people don't even believe the devil exists. Unfortunately, he does. And it makes perfect sense. You can't have good if you don't have evil. That's the way the universe works. You can't have light unless you have darkness.
Well, listen, man, I got to hit a break.
I've experienced the devil. I've had run-ins with the devil. When I was on drugs and trying to kick him, I've experienced the devil. I've felt the devil's presence. He wanted me not to get off the drugs, but thank God, God intervened, and this September 15th, I'll be sober 17 years.
Congratulations, man. That's a great note to end on, because I got to run and I got to hit a break. But I appreciate you taking the time out to call in about all this. I hope that, and on behalf of the fans in some capacity, we hope you're there in December. And that's the only way I'll be there. And I hope that you get the apology you want. I got a minute. Go ahead.
My new album.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that this next album I'm going to be putting out, and I'm not sure exactly when the record company. I'm going to have the album ready before my birthday. It'll be finished, but it takes months for it to actually be scheduled and released.
Right.
It takes months to get the records pressed, and they're doing vinyl now and all that stuff. But I believe that this new album I'm going to release is probably going to top my first solo album. It may be the best solo album to date I've ever done.
Well, that's a tall order, and look forward to hearing it. I got to go, man. Thank you for the time. I got to run. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
It's always a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, fans, for listening in. And I hope I didn't offend anybody by using words I shouldn't use or saying things maybe that you found offensive. But, when I'm on the air, I can only be me. I don't have to apologize for that, but I am anyway.
All right, Ace. We'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you. There he goes, everybody. Chew on that. We'll come back. We'll get into some emails and wrap up Trunk Nation. Faction Talk 103 in the SiriusXM app. Thanks to Ace Frehley. Interesting stuff as always. Be right back.